I saw that knowledge gap between like of financial literacy, what I had learnt and been exposed to through my dad and my parents and our family business. I learned so many things through that, which I hope I've conveyed through this podcast and my other, like my book as well. But I've just learned so many things, and the book is like a way for me to, share that with the world as well. And the way that I've written the book, it's a what I like to call a non-fiction fiction book. So it's a story, but it still teaches along the way.
Welcome to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel, the leading weekly show for Australians who want to learn how to unlock their full self, health and wealth potential. I'm your host, Bushy Martin, and each week I go deep with the best investors, experts, leaders and founders to find out what it takes to break free from the grind, discover freedom and to live by design. Subscribe now and join me and get invested in the life that you really want. Let's get started.
Hi, freedom fighters. What if the biggest barrier to your financial freedom is time, and you've already lost way too much of it? What if the difference between scraping by and living your dream life comes down to whether you start investing now or you just keep putting it off? Are you unknowingly training your kids to inherit your financial fears instead of your future freedoms? And here's the big ones. What if I told you that the best investment advice that you'll ever hear just might come from a teenager who started out with a cupcake and a paintbrush? And if a 16-year-old can simplify property investing and make financial literacy fun and accessible, what's your excuse for not taking action yet? Because on today's Get Invested episode, we're going to flip the script. So to set the scene, let me paint a picture of two very real and relatable stories. First, there's Dave, good bloke in his mid-40s. He's earned well, he's lived well, but he's always told himself, I'll get serious about saving and investing when things settle down a bit. But the problem is, life never settles down. Mortgage, kids, career pressures, until he hits 50 and he suddenly realises he's running out of road. He's had that oh shit super moment. He's finally realised that paying off his home loan and relying on his super to fund his golden years was going to leave him and his wife in penny-pinching poverty, trying to live off the smell of an oily rag. So he's now playing catch-up, trying to build in a decade what most others take 2, 3 or 4 to achieve. Then there's Lily. She started saving at 14 and investing at 18, modestly, just saving consistently and learning the ropes. Now in her mid-30s, she's sitting on a small portfolio, a passive income stream, and more importantly, she's got choices. Why? Because she understood the golden rule of investing. Because it's not about how much you start with, it's about how early you start. And that brings me to today's incredible guest. You're about to meet someone who embodies the rule more powerfully than anyone I've seen in a long while, because she's bold, she's brilliant, and she's still in high school. I'm talking about Jia Rastogi, a teen entrepreneur, best-selling author of Class Clown to Wealth Wizard, and a finalist for Teen Entrepreneur of the Year. Yes, you heard that right. At just 16 years old, Jia is shaking up the world of property investing, making it simple, relatable, and dare I say it, fun. Her book isn't just for young readers either. It's a financial literacy roadmap for anyone who's ever felt overwhelmed or excluded from the wealth building conversation. But Jia's not just talking the talk, she's walking it. Co-founding businesses, guiding Aussies through property strategies with Get Rare Properties, and giving back through her volunteer work and her vision for community change. So in our discussions and conversation with Jia, we're going to help you learn why financial literacy needs to start young and how to make it stick, the mindset shifts that turn teenagers into wealth wizards, simple, actionable steps to begin investing, even if you're starting small, how you as a parent can lead by example and empower your kids financially, and how Jia balances being a student, a CEO, and a role model, all before she can even legally vote. And make sure you stick around to the end so that you can find out how to grab 2 awesome gifts that Jia is offering just for getting investors like you to help you get and keep your financial dreams on track. So whether you're 16 or 60, this conversation will remind you that it's never too early, but it can be too late if you leave it too long. So welcome and let's get invested, Jia.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here and let's get started.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. As you probably know, I know your great parents particularly well, having worked closely with them over a period of time. And I guess I'm really excited about what you've done and what you've achieved already. And you're really showing by your actions that you're thinking long and hard about things that a lot of people don't think about until decades later. But I guess, G, just to sort of kick things off, and to sort of set the tone, what's your favourite funny story that you or others tell about you that really best sums up who you are?
Yeah, I think it comes back to something that it's even in my book, like in my why I wrote about the book, like that section. But it's a story about my dad, and he was investing in properties over the years, and he was working on a renovation project. And so obviously my family went down to, check out what he's doing. He was working with my cousin, like my older cousin. So they were both working on the project, and my dad said to me that you can get a vanilla cupcake if you help with three simple tasks. So the first one was painting a door. And so obviously, being the creative person I am, and also having a massive sweet tooth at the time, the vanilla cupcake was everything I wanted. And obviously, I had to do the task to get that. So, yeah, just that first lesson that I remember about property and also about having to earn, like having to do the work to earn something in return.
Yeah, I love that. If you're sort of, I know this is probably a tough question because a lot of people struggle with this one, but what do you think you do differently and why do you do what you do? Gia?
Yeah, I think it's because I like to keep expanding my knowledge and keep learning. So everything I do, I try and do my best in it and getting the most out of the experience. So it's not just about, like there's the big things that I've done, like writing a book and, helping my parents in their business, but also the smaller things that I do in school. Like I play the flute in the school band that I started only in year 7. I also am doing Duke of Ed, and now I'm working on my gold level. So just the small things that I do, but then also the bigger things that really shape who I am.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're clearly very motivated, and I often say that the fruit often doesn't fall far from the tree. And what I mean by that is that Rusty and your good mum have clearly instilled really good values in you and given you the motivation and inspiration to do some amazing things at your age. Can you sort of circle back and touched on that story about Dad? But if you think back over your time so far, in terms of where you've invested your time and your energy to
Yeah.
date, uh, what does that look like, and how has that led you to where you are, and what you're currently doing?
Yeah. So I think I'd like to like split it up into like a few different sections. So obviously the time. So I've spent that, reading books, attending workshops, learning from my dad as well. Like just in year 7, that's when I first read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so obviously the concepts were very difficult for me. So my dad was teaching me with a whiteboard. He was like telling me what compounding is, like how you can refinance your loans to put the equity into your next property. So I still have like a vivid, memory of him like drawing up the blocks on a whiteboard. And then I was like sitting on the ground. It was almost as if I was in school again, but we were at home. And then also like the energy that I've spent. So like I work with my parents in their family business. So that's called Get Rare Properties. And so I've done a lot, helping with the website, the marketing. I've also attended like property expos with them. So obviously, because they started in COVID, I heard a lot about, property and all the calls. Like, even if you didn't want to listen to my dad's call, just being in the same house, you kind of had to. So definitely learned a lot from there. But then also I co-founded a business with my sister in COVID, just as a little side hustle to learn more about business. But, I use that to focus on like accounting, marketing, creating a website. I learned through that. And yeah, but obviously you have to keep in mind that I am 16. And so I do still have a social life. I'm not a nerd who sits at home all day, but I do like lots of sports. Due to like I'm in year 12 right now, so I have slowed down on a bit of things, but I used to do swimming. I still do netball, used to do tennis as well. And because and with my family, I've been traveling a lot as well over the years, international trips once a year. And yeah, I even got a little fun fact, but I got my scuba diving license just when I was 11 years old. And so whenever I have the chance with my dad, I love to go scuba diving with him.
Love it, love it. I guess that there's a couple of things there that I'd like to sort of dig into a little bit because, a lot of young people would be sitting there listening to discussion on capital growth and property investing again. Boring. What was it that, and then it's probably about your dad's, the way he's actually engaged you in that conversation to make it interesting. But I'd love to sort of check in with you and get your sense of that because, there will be a lot of them more focused on a lot of other things, and that the topic of talking about money, wealth, and whatnot is like, okay, this is not for me. Well, what made it interesting for you, so that you got really engaged and interested in all of that?
Yeah, I think it was more the way that it was like I was exposed to the knowledge. It wasn't something that he, sat me down and forced me to listen to every single thing. It was more about him like just funnily, not that's not a word, but like in a fun way, he taught me these things. Like even just the cupcake example, it's not something that he said, look, this is me investing and renovating. It was more of me being exposed to that kind of experiences. And yeah, so over the years, it's been something that has been exposed to me like just slowly rather than it all being like dumped onto me in a really intimidating sense. It was just more about a little bit here and there, which has brought up my entire mindset.
Yeah, I love it. We sort of look back on that and what you've experienced so far. What are the sort of the key beliefs that you currently have as a result of spending time with your family? What are the key things that you believe in relation to life and where you're heading?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to what your why is. So having a vision for your life and not just about doing things right now that will give you the short-term satisfaction. Like I'm in a selective school, which is in New South Wales. So I have like all my friends, they're very academically focused. And I often see that they're trying to get the best ATAR to get into the best uni and then the best job, a 9 to 5 job to get, the most money that they can. But because I was exposed to what my dad's taught me about like starting a business and, that other pathway that I have and pretty much everyone has as well, because you can start from zero practically. But even like looking at my friends, I was able to see that they weren't doing what they wanted to do. It was more about doing whatever they could do to get the best like income. Like I have friends they know that they can achieve like a 95 plus ATAR, but then they're not focusing on, oh, I really love law. That's why I want to go into law. They're going, medicine's going to give me the best money. So I want to go towards medicine. So I think first focusing more on what you want to do with your life and then creating the goals to build you up and set you up for that knowledge and for that vision.
Love it, love it. And it is a very different focus because the world has become much more money focused, there's no doubt about it. And I went to uni. Like your dad, I was an architect and I practiced for 17 odd years. And it was all about the ambition and the career and everything else that went with it. But having that overall vision of where you're heading, it really is a guiding light as far as that's concerned. Given everything that you've mentioned about, clearly you don't sleep very much, Jia, because with everything you just told us about what you're involved in, how do you manage the demands of being a very busy teenager, but also a entrepreneur and a businesswoman?
Yeah, I think it doesn't just come to like what I do, like overall. I think I focus more on, okay, wait. So basically I focus on, creating that to-do list and then prioritizing based on that rather than just doing whatever I can at the moment. Like in school, obviously we have the terms and then the holidays. So in the holidays, I have more time to focus on things outside of school. But during exam period, it might be a bit harder to spend that time. So I'll be focusing more on school stuff. So just finding that balance overall and then focusing on whatever is necessary at that time, but then also looking at the overall what I need to focus on, if that makes sense.
It certainly makes sense. So everyone has challenges in their life, Gia. It's what this life is about and the learnings that come from it. What's been the most challenging event you've experienced so far, and what have been your learnings and changes that have come out of that?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question because it really comes down to, the hard moment and then, but also the lesson that you got out of it, not just focusing on the hardship, but then the lesson as well. So for me, I think there's been quite a few things over the years, but I think the main one was writing the book. It was quite so Class Clown 12th Wizard. That's my book that I've written. And it was quite challenging. It was quite challenging at some times, but I think the hardest part would be when I was reaching out to a lot of people and I wanted feedback for my book. Because obviously I heard it got to a point in May where I had written the best book that I could have, but it really needed that outside knowledge and like feedback. So I reached out to a lot of people and, there was some ghosting, some people didn't reply or they were too busy, which I understand. But then there were some people who did spend the time, gave me the feedback, but then it was just so much feedback that like I didn't know what to do with it. So it was like almost that rejection that I got, like, oh, the book isn't as good as I expected it was. So then my goal was to finish it in August before my birthday. But then I had to extend the deadline because there was just so many good pieces of feedback that I just had to implement. But obviously it was a bit of that like conflict of interest because I didn't want to extend the deadline, but I did want to put in the feedback. So like having that negative person in the storyline or having like the key takeaways at the end of each book, having the quotes that I have in every now and then, there's like a quote from a famous person. So all those things were added because I was able to reach out to those people and ask for help.
I love it. That whole process. There's a whole learning exercise just through what you've described, and you're absolutely right. Because if I sense you're potentially a bit of a perfectionist, could be misreading, and perfectionists. I suffer from the same ailment, by the way. So we tend to beat ourselves up for the 1% that we don't get right, rather than the 99% we do get. Yeah. And that means that we are highly sensitive to feedback. We can see the benefit of it, but it still hurts on the inside to some degree. And being able to work through that and be comfortable with that and take that on and turn what I know would have been a really good book to start with into something that's even better as a result of doing that. Full marks to you in that regard. If we sort of drill down a little bit, then given writing a book it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done because you really have to confront yourself when you do that, and you're putting your words out into the world for everyone to comment on, which is challenging in itself. What do you struggle with, Gia?
I think probably with the time and energy that I spend, finding that balance, especially because obviously I don't always have the time to do everything that I aspire to do, but just prioritizing and just having like overcoming the self-doubt as well. Because obviously I'm young, so people won't per se trust me immediately. So having that support circle that who encourages me even when I'm feeling low.
Yeah, love it, love it. And that's really important as far as that goes. Let's pivot now a little bit and start digging into money and money habits to some degree. What does money mean to you, Gia?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more about having it's more of a tool rather than being able to just, spend it on things that you want. It's money can, when you use it the right way, you can earn so much from it. Like just investing on itself, like it can just compound into so much more and just help you in so many more ways rather than just spending it. Like, I'm sure you've seen those examples, like even the listeners on like social media, which is like, oh, if you get a coffee every single day, but if you didn't get that coffee and you spent it, like if you saved it and invested it in the future, then you would have so much more money. So it's just looking at the way that you can use it as a tool, but then obviously still getting that satisfaction in the short term.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything about your money approach that almost none of your friends agree with you about?
Yeah, for me, it's obviously so our school, the way that it's located, we have a server right across our school. So in the breaks, like as seniors now that we can like leave the school when we want to, in our in our breaks, I see so many people leaving, going across the road and like getting a coffee or a hot chocolate or some candy. And I often think to myself, like, where are you getting all that money from? And like, how are you able to spend that much? Like, it's not that it's a lot of money that they're spending, but having $5 every single day, it definitely adds up over the time. So then I often like to save my money. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing of going across the road, but I do it as well, obviously. Like I need that sweet treat every now and then. But it's more about controlling the habit and making sure that there is a habit in place and just not just only saving your money every single time, but having like what I said again, the habit and making sure I'll only spend $5 a week or whatever works for you in a scenario or in your situation. But definitely I'm not always like impulse spending is quite a big thing that I see my friends doing, and not just my friends, but other people my age. So just making sure to firstly knowing that you're doing it and then finding a way to stop it by creating that habit.
Yeah, love it, love it. If there was one sort of favorite money savings or hack that you'd like to share, what would that be?
Yeah, for me, it's probably saving your money first and then spending. So when you get your paycheck, it's not just about spending whatever you can and then saving the remainder. It's more about creating that habit of saying, oh, I'll save 10% every single time in my paycheck, and then I'll spend the rest of the 90%. Because I feel like savings is one of those things where people don't think about immediately. It's one of those things that come later on. But if you do create that habit of saving first and then spending next, and there's this general rule of thumb that I've outlined in my book as well. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. So 50 goes towards your necessities. So like your basic living needs, your rent, your bills. But then the 30% goes towards your luxurious needs. So like spending that on takeaway or going out with your friends, watching a movie. And then the last 20% is the savings and investments. So letting that accumulate over the years and then investing that money. But of course, it's not everyone will be suitable for the 50-30-20 rule. You should obviously, consult with your financial advisors and see whatever makes sense for you. And then especially because everyone has different needs, of course. So but definitely saving first and then creating that habit to spend next.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think just that simple, do not touch money. Just setting that aside, and then you can live off what's left. But if you're setting that aside right from the get-go, rather than, oh, I'll save whatever's left, if there is any left,
Yeah.
that habit. And I've seen a lot of people who go, oh, well, I just can't. And I say, well, okay, well, next time you get a pay rise, put the pay rise, all the extra money into the savings and just continue to live the way you are because you're already living that way.
Yeah.
So you continue to do that, and any extra you're getting, then you can turn that into savings so that it eliminates that excuse for why they can't do it. I want to sort of change gears a bit now and sort of jump in into the future a little bit. And this is a big question, Jia. It'll be interesting in your thoughts on it. But what does fulfillment, freedom, and financial independence mean to you?
Yeah, for me, financial freedom is definitely something that people do think is a long-term thing. Like it's going to come in the future, that you don't have to think about it right now. But for me, I do have that, even though it's a long-term goal, I still have it in my mind. And for me, financial freedom is not just retiring immediately and spending your day on the beach. It's more about, being able to do what you want to do without worrying about making money. So for example, if you have those multiple streams of income, then you don't have to, spend your day at a 9 to 5 job and, making money. You can actually, you know, be able to do whatever you want. Like for me, I want to travel around the world, and that's one of my, goals for the future. So for me, financial freedom would mean that I don't have to worry about making money and I can just focus on traveling. But for other people, it might be like running a business or looking after your family, creating a legacy for your kids, or even just your hobbies like painting, music, dancing, all those different things that people want to do but can't do because you have to, spend your day at a 9 to 5 job to make the money.
Yeah, I love that. But let's paint that out a bit further in terms of what your ideal life vision looks like, and particularly if money wasn't an issue. And then sort of tell us, what is your plan of attack to make that happen?
Yeah. So for me, it's probably like living in an amazing home, like those mansions that you always see, definitely next to the beach because I love the beach. And like I mentioned before as well, traveling around the world. And like for me, even though I don't know if it's as, achievable, but it's definitely a goal in my mind to visit every single country. And even though that does mean that it will take a long time, but it's something I definitely want to achieve. And of course, also giving back to the community, donating money, sponsoring children, and also just, like I do surf life saving. So supporting causes that I believe in and making an impact on the world as well.
Yeah, I love that. And in terms of the investment approach that you're going to take, how are you going to make that happen, do you think?
Yeah, so obviously I'm still young, so I can't invest as of now because I'm still 16. But for me, that does mean that I have to start creating the money, like saving the money to have that money in the future so I can invest when the time is right. So obviously I'm working on the positive skills and, developing myself as a person and, still learning about that financial knowledge. But I'm also saving alongside to create it for the future. So yeah, just working on myself, and rather than investing with money, which I can't do as of now, but I will be like, I am investing in myself as a person.
Yeah, I love that. That's brilliant. So I'm really sort of excited now to dive into the book in a bit more detail. But before we do that, can you sort of share what common mistakes you see other teenagers, their parents, and the schools making when it comes to money, saving, and investment?
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, just seeing my friends going across the road and, prioritizing that instant gratification, but not thinking about the long-term impacts of their spending choices. Like I mentioned before, spending that was like buying a coffee every single day, it adds up on the long term. And then if you do the maths, then you can see how much you've actually spent and how much you could have done with that money, but you decided to prioritize the instant satisfaction in the short term. So, like, I think parents as well, like, my friends don't know much about financial literacy or like things that they need to know for financials. And so I think it's about that the parents avoid talking about money as well. And, just to like protect their kids for the like financial risks that there are. So then they kind of like turn a blind eye towards that, even though it's so important for kids to know. And schools especially, like we don't learn much about financial literacy at all. Like you would think that, the system has changed over like so many years, but still, like I take business and commerce in school, and most of it is based on like the theory, or even just focusing, even in business, it's more about focusing on the bigger businesses. So like how does Woolworths achieve like profit maximization? But obviously it doesn't make sense for someone who wants to start a business, because that's not what we focus on too much. We focus more on the global businesses. And so, yeah, just making sure that it is taught in a more fun and like approachable way. So then like kids, and not just kids, but even young adults or people older than that, for them to be able to see that that is a pathway for them as well, rather than just, like it's for the rich people or it's for someone, like it's not for me kind of thing. Even though, even though financial literacy is something that anyone can achieve despite their, circumstances.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and I'd love your thoughts on this. I know that, it's a long time since I've been in school, Jess, so I won't tell you how many years that is, but I do remember that there were kids who loved maths and found it easy, and there was kids who really struggled with maths of any form, and maths got associated with money. So if I'm not good at numbers, I can't be good with money, and therefore they, right from a very early age, they basically convince themselves that they're never going to be any good with money. Is that still current? Is that still floating through, or do people of your age think differently about that now?
Yeah, I think definitely there's still like, you have to be good at maths to be good at financials. But I think that like completely ignores like all the advisors, mortgage brokers, buyers agents. They all are there to help you, accountants as well. They're all there to help you to learn about your scenario, even if you're bad at maths. Like I personally can't say anything because I'm pretty good at maths myself, but it's not just like money isn't just about knowing maths. It's more about like learning the concepts overall, and then at least knowing that it's something that you can implement yourself, and then making it happen with the right mindset and team around you.
Yes, and we'll dig into that more in a bit now, because I really do want to sort of shift into your fantastic book. And I wrote my first book in my 50s, Jia. So for you to, and it's a great book. I have taken the time to read it, and your ability to tell, convey messages and great stories is absolutely exceptional. And it really is a top-notch book. And I'm a judge on the Australian Business Book Award, so I read a lot of books, Jia. I was really impressed, and I know how big a task that is. Sort of getting into the weeds with Class Clown to Wealth Wizard, why did you write it? What are some of the key messages, and who's it best suited for?
Yeah, so I definitely wrote it because I saw that knowledge gap between like of financial literacy, what I had learnt and been exposed to through my dad and my parents and our family business. I learnt so many things through that, which I hope I've conveyed through this podcast and my other, like my book as well. But I've just learned so many things, and the book is like a way for me to, share that with the world as well. And the way that I've written the book, it's what I like to call a non-fiction fiction book. So it's a story, but it still teaches along the way. So it's more about those discussions that the characters have, sharing their different viewpoints and standpoints. And because it's a discussion, they're just like five friends in a coffee shop having dinner together, and they're just, like talking about it. They're all sharing or like like they're sharing their scenarios, but also what they believe is best for them. But then there's the main character who's like telling them how he's implemented the things and how they also can achieve the same. So yeah, definitely about those key messages that I like to share with the book. It's about how much mindset matters. So my book, it's kind of split into two parts, not explicitly, but the first part is more about the personal development and the mindset that you need to have, the goals that you should be setting, having that vision. And then the second part is more about the financial literacy and how exactly you can implement that into your own circumstances. So about having like compounding, leveraging, pyramiding, and then also creating that team to support you throughout the entire process. So yeah, just mindset matters. And definitely it's for people, not just young adults, even though that's like who I did write it in mind for, but it's also for the people who do get intimidated by other books. Like I mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that book it's an awesome book and has so much in it, but just it's a bit hard for people to understand. There's so many big words in there and it gets a bit hard. And it's not just Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's like a lot of books out there like that. So even though my book, it has some of like those concepts in it, like I have the 4 quadrants from Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I've simplified it like a lot for anyone to understand. And even the characters inside, they don't understand either. So they're asking questions to clarify what it means exactly.
Exactly. Really, really well said. Similar to your dad, when my son was growing up, there's a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad for kids. So I used to read that with my son because it dumbed down some of the language, so it was much easier to get your head around. And dumbed down isn't the right expression for your book because it's very articulately written, but it's very engaging. The stories that you use and the characters that you've created representing various viewpoints and mindsets is really key. So I love the way you've done that, and I can pretty much guess which one of those 5 school friends that you're most resembling and who you're likely to end up being. But give me your take of the Evelyn, Abby, Ollie, Ben, and Sam. Which one do you think you're most likely to be?
Yeah, obviously, I think it's not just me, but I think everyone should be as aspired to be Sam in the book. Even though he's shown as a male character, which I realized later on that might not have been the best approach. Someone told me like, "Oh, what happened to girl power?" And I was like, "Oh, wait, I did not think about that."
But well, Sam can be Samantha, so it covers both, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, but definitely Sam is the person you would want to aspire to be. He um knows so much about knowledge, like he knows so much about mindset, what you should be thinking about, how, because he's implemented it himself. So he represents, learning from mistakes, but then also taking control of his financial future. And just wanted to clarify as well, the book's called Class Clown to Wealth Wizard, and that's based on Sam. And so he's shown as a person who knew nothing. He wasn't like brightest student in school, but then in the high school reunion, you can see that transformation. And the reason that I've crafted it like that is to show that it's not just for the smartest student to do in school. It's possible for everyone, even the class clown of the book.
Yeah, totally. In fact, in my own experience, and I've sort of been in this game for a long time now, intelligence can actually be a hamstring because almost the more intelligent you are, rather than take simple steps, you actually try to complicate things too much and therefore miss out on a lot of the opportunity that comes from it. So stepping back from it a little bit, and as you say, mindset it's not intelligence, it's mindset that is the real key. Tell us about what shifts Australians generally, not just teenagers, but generally need to make when it comes to mindset in terms of how we can better position ourselves for financial freedom?
Yeah. So in my book, I've actually talked about the mindset of abundance.
Yeah.
And it's about like knowing and like thinking in the way that there is enough resources for everyone and it is something for everyone to achieve. So, you might think like, oh, investing is only for the rich, but it's something that you can achieve as like for yourself. So moving away from that scarcity mindset and moving towards the mindset of abundance, but then also embracing like patience, consistency, persistency as well. And just, focusing on that long-term planning. And then with that long-term goal of yours, breaking it up into shorter goals and focusing on just that one step at a time, but still focusing on your long-term goal in a whole.
Yeah, no, beautifully said. One of the big hurdles that you talk about in the book is fear, and fear of failure, fear of the unknown. What tools do you suggest can help us to push through that resistance that holds people back?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind is definitely your support community, having mentors and advisors around you. So allowing them to, even when you're fearful, they're helping you with their expertise and they're like informing you that it is possible and it's something that you can do as well. But then also just breaking your goals down into smaller goals, and that reduces like the overwhelming aspect of like investing. Like you think it's such a big thing, like I'm putting so much money into property or any other assets as well. But then just allowing that to, breaking it down into smaller goals, and it just reduces that overwhelm. Yeah. And also just like the mindset. I feel like I keep mentioning mindset, but it's just so important. Like the positive affirmations or like visualizing your life after like you create those changes and then using that as a fuel to keep going in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely, Kay. And something I like to get people to focus on, it doesn't matter where you are and how things are now, it's where you're heading. That's key. That is the key thing. If you keep reminding yourself, I don't care where I'm at now, it's where I'm going to get to. Then that can really help you to stop beating yourself up and focusing on the positive future that's coming. When it comes to parents, what do parents need to be doing to encourage and foster financial literacy? Given, as you already mentioned, it's not a subject that's talked about much.
Yeah. I think the main reason like parents don't do anything is because they might think that it's not for their child to learn right now, or it's like a future problem. But just like my parents have done, they've like instilled that like mindset into me right from day one. Like my first memory of property investing is when I was 8 years old. And since then, the conversations have been growing. Like my dad's like always teaching me a new thing, at dinner tables, in the car as well. And so just having like even just like small bits here and there, and it really adds up to create something like bigger. And just modeling the healthy habits as well. If you see your parent, spending like, if they think, oh, I want takeaway, I'm going to get takeaway. But if you see that happening, then you like subconsciously your child is going to think like that as well. But obviously just making sure you have those healthy habits yourself, because your parents, your children do learn from your parents, even if it is subconsciously. So yeah, just fostering those open conversations about money and like showing those healthy habits.
Yeah, 100%. Love that. We've touched on teachers and education a little bit, but let's get into that, because it's very clear to me that teachers and educators of all forms need to read your book. But how can they incorporate it in their day-to-day activity to help students and others to really embrace money and investment as a core piece of how to get ahead in life?
Yeah. I think the conflict there is that they have to go by their like syllabus, and they have to teach like exactly what the Department of Education has taught them to teach. But even if it's just like the small discussions about money, mindset, and goals, just like those short, like practical lessons, they can be like implemented anywhere into your life. And even if it's not just like you're standing in front of a whiteboard and teaching every single thing explicitly, just showing it like, just, I don't know what the word is, but like just showing it in your daily life, and just not only like explicitly teaching, but also just doing it because that's what you believe in. And then that's because as a teacher, you are a role model for your like for the students. And so if they're seeing that their teacher is doing it, it kind of shows the children as well subconsciously that it's something that they can do. So even like my book, it goes into not just financial literacy, like the mindset as well.
Yeah.
That can be taught in like from any teacher. It doesn't just have to be like a maths teacher or a business studies teacher. Like the mindset and the values behind it as well can be taught like in any scenario.
Yeah, I love that. The other thing that, and again, we touched on this earlier, but for many, and not just kids, but adults, find the whole subject of money and investing not only scary but quite boring. How can we make it more interesting and engaging so that people do see the opportunity and do something about it, do you think?
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, money is such like an intimidating topic. It's something that people get like scared of. And so that's why parents may feel that they're not prepared to teach it to their children, because they may know that they're making a direct impact on their children's life about how they spend their money. And like with schools as well, we just focus on the traditional subjects. I don't think, like, obviously I might not know, but I don't think there's been that much of a shift of financial literacy being incorporated into the school system, because I certainly don't think that there's enough of it. But it definitely does need a change, because money skills is something that every single person must know and every single person must do to make sure that they're going in the right step, even though we all have different goals and aspirations for our futures and our lives. But money is like, I feel like it's one of the biggest things that hold people back. Not like you might think, oh, I don't have enough time, but it could just be that you're spending all your time at a 9 to 5 job, which is stopping you to do what you wanted to do. And it just comes back to that money. And, it becomes a setback if you don't think about it. And that's why it's so important for everyone to be focusing on that. And it, like you said, we need to make it fun as well. So like what I've done in my book, it's a story. So you can learn even though you're being engaged into that like scenario and that setting. And it also just fosters like the open conversations. They're talking about it as 5 friends, at a dinner table. They're just talking about it openly and just connecting those financial lessons into like your interests and goals. Like, I think if you talk about financial literacy just in the air, it just becomes too much, like too distant almost. But if you go around and ask yourself, like, what do you want to do with your life? And for me, that's traveling. So thinking about traveling and then thinking about how can I actually achieve that for myself, rather than just, having that goal in my mind and that's where it stays.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That's a great answer. And let's face it, in a capitalist world, which most of the world lives in, money is the oxygen and the fuel for our future. So
Definitely.
if we starve ourselves of it, then we're not going to have the ability to enjoy life the way we would like. So getting your head around it and then turning that knowledge into habits that people are doing regularly and persistently with patience over time is the transformative thing that really takes shape. Gee, I feel like we've only sort of scratch the surface of the fantastic stuff that you put in the book. And again, I recommend everyone to grab themselves a copy because you really do capture. You're a great storyteller. There's no question about it. And the stories are the best way for anyone to learn anything. And you've got those 5 characters that you've created. Everyone will be able to see themselves as one of those, and then they can see what they need to do to become Sam. So I think you've really captured that absolutely beautifully. But if we sort of summed it up, what's the key takeaway and must-do action that anyone listening needs to do now?
Yeah, I think definitely just start. If you don't do anything right now, especially like not just listening to this podcast, but if you just don't do anything like right now, then I don't think there's much hope for you to do anything in the future. Like if I'm sure by now everyone knows that there is the importance of financial literacy. I think everyone does know that it's something that you do need to focus on. It's just people aren't like bothered to focus on it, or they don't have the time to work on it, even though it is that tool, like I said before, it's that tool to give you the financial freedom and the capabilities. So even if you don't have enough money to invest right now, I'm not saying like finish listening to this podcast and buy a property right now. Like I feel like that's a very silly thing to say, but it's more about it's more about focusing on your vision, creating that vision, knowing that that's your long-term goal, but splitting it into smaller short-term goals and focusing on each thing one by one. And just getting in touch with a team who can help you achieve that. Because I think one of like another big misconception is that you don't know everything. And I don't think anyone knows everything. And so like me, myself, I wouldn't know right now which property to buy right now. But having that team around you who has that expertise and they can help you implement that, implement it into your life. Even if it's just focusing on every single aspect, like, as a mortgage broker, you're focusing on just how can you get that loan? How can you make sure the borrowing capacity is at its fullest? How can you maximize it? And then like a buyer's agent, they help with finding the exact property that you should buy. Financial advisor is there to tell you what your overall strategy should be. Your accountants are telling you like how much money you have, how can you better manage your money. And so just creating that team as well to help bring every single aspect into life. And even though you are spending more money on, crafting that team and getting the best of the best, it does come into play on like how much you achieve from that. Like, even though you might think that a buyer's agent is too expensive or a mortgage broker is too expensive, like you are able to see that there are rewards from, bringing those people into your team. And it's not just about how much money you're spending right now to craft that team. It's about how much they can help you in making the right decision. Like my parents are a buyer's agent, so I keep mentioning a buyer's agent. But like with the buyer's agent, if you don't have one, they can't tell you what the best property to buy is. And if you don't spend that extra like 10K on having a buyer's agent, then you might spend a wrong decision and put your money and your risk into that. But then that means you're like losing so much money in comparison to how much you would have spent. So it's just about managing that risk and reward. You have to make an informed risk, having that team around you to support you in making that decision, because they'll help you achieve that reward in the future. I hope that all makes sense, but yeah.
Absolutely awe-inspiring. I've got to say, I'm sitting here in awe of your ability to understand what it's all about and then communicate that very, very clearly. Really impressive, Jia. Absolutely. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people over the years, And to listen to you talk at the tender age of 16 with such confidence, and clearly you understand how it all fits together, that's an absolute testimony to you, but also your parents. I think it's just amazing. Before I switch into what I like to call the ambush round, where I ask you 4 quick questions that everyone likes to get your thoughts on, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to say before we do that?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned so many things in this podcast. It's just awesome, like how much ground we've actually covered. But just to emphasize on that point again, that financial literacy is achievable for everyone. Like my book shows that there's like 5 regular Aussies, and they're all like one's a single mom, one's working as I actually don't remember. It's been a while since I read the book, but there's that single mom, then there's like they're just working 9 to 5 jobs, and I'm sure the readers can also like relate to at least one aspect of each of the characters. And so it just proves the point again that financial literacy is achievable for everyone. And it's not just something that is a long-term thing that you shouldn't be worrying about right now. Because it comes back to what you were saying in the intro as well, that if you start earlier, the better you can achieve in the future. Because it's all about having that time which compounds your money and your investments.
And frees up the time to be able to do things you really love.
Exactly.
The real prize is time, I think. Yeah, money is the fuel, but time is the prize. So if you start early and you've got such a ramp and you let compounding do its work, I often use the term TLC, Jia. So you got to give yourself TLC, and that's time, leveraging other people and other people's money, and then compounding the returns, and then just sitting back and letting it do its thing. It's amazing what can be created with that. And I'd love your thoughts on it. And I'm sure you're proving to be a shining example and a role model for others. So I'm really keen for anyone listening, if you're a parent or you're a teenager, listen to this, learn from Jia, share this with others, because you start at 16, you've got the right mindset and the right money habits, and the world is your oyster. So let's now switch gears into the ambush round, where I call it the bushfire lightning round. If you could have coffee with anyone, Jia, and they can be dead or alive or an historical figure, who would you choose and why?
Yeah, I'd probably choose Melanie Perkins. She's the founder of Canva, and she founded the business when she was only 19. And I'm sure like it's a global business now. Everyone uses Canva. I use it to design my posters at school. I'm sure graphic designers use it for like quick tasks. Like it's just used by so many people over the world. And I'd love to just sit down and have a chat with her, like with a coffee. I'd probably have a hot chocolate because I'm not into coffee, but definitely just learning about her mindset. And because she started so young, just knowing how she was able to not be distracted by social media or like her friends doing other things. And especially because she obviously didn't go on the same path that everyone else went on. So I'd love to know her view on how she was able to achieve that and her tips and tricks doing that.
Yeah, well, it should be very inspirational, and you're heading in the same direct trajectory there, Jia. So, I'm going to watch this space as far as that goes. Next question: and you've got some great quotes throughout the book, by the way. I love the way you've broken it up and weaved into the story. What is your favorite quote and why?
Yeah, it's definitely work hard and party even harder. It's a bit of a good one. It's not just about, working, but also about having the fun and rewarding yourself after that. It really, like working hard and putting all your focus into that. And then when you do have the time, like after that, you have the time to party. So having fun where you don't have to think about all the other work things and you just get to have fun in the moment. And then when you do get back to work, then you can't be as distracted because you've already had that fun, if that makes sense. So it just makes you more productive.
Totally. And enjoying life now, not putting it off until some future date, which is so perhaps. So love that. I'm sort of going to turn a little bit of a different direction now. What superpower do you wish you had, and why?
Yeah, this comes back to a TV show that I watched about like earlier in the year in the holidays. It's Suits from like about, with Mike Ross, and he has photographic memory, and I think that would be just so awesome to have, especially because I'm coming into my exam period in year 12. So I would barely have to study. I just have to like skim through my textbooks and I just know everything. But yeah, that I love that TV show, and just having photographic memory would be such a gift.
Yeah, I actually went to uni with someone who had a photographic memory, Gia, and I was so jealous of him at the time because he literally did that. He'd kick back, he'd read something once, and he could then recite a chapter. So he cruised through uni. Every night he was watching TV, kicking back, and there I was until midnight, scribing away. Would be an awesome superpower to have.
Yeah.
Last one, if I gave you $50 million in cold hard cash right here, right now, what would you spend it on or invest it on, and why?
$50 million is a lot. That's a lot of money. And I think definitely you would have to, well, for me, especially, I would definitely be investing it. Not all of it, because it's so much money. I definitely want to spend it for myself as well. But I'd probably invest like half of it to make more money for the future. Like $25 million is still a lot of money to invest. But, it let me create more money for the future. So then I'd still have that money. But I definitely spend like $10 million, or I'm not too sure about the exact prices. But I would love to have a waterfront house. Obviously, I'm too young to be like buying a house for myself, but I'd want to like buy a house, maybe a holiday home in the northern beaches next to the beach. That'd be around 10 million. And then I'd spend 5 million for traveling over the years. I'd just have like, that's so much money by itself, but I could travel so much with that money. And then definitely donating as well, because there's so many people around the world who aren't in the same circumstances or don't have the same opportunities. So donating $5 million, and then just, I think my family and friends would be a bit jealous. So I'd probably give them, 5 million as well.
Love it. Love it. That is awesome. Sort of to wrap it all up, if I ask you to get invested, what does that mean to you, G?
Yeah, I think getting invested, first thing that comes to mind is actually investing your money. But I think to me, it also means investing in your knowledge and investing in your education to create that purpose and discipline, and especially being proactive about wealth and freedom and embracing that long-term and consistent action to create a lasting impact.
I love it. Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. Gia, we'll have all of your contact details in the show notes, so people can tune into you more. But for those in the audience that really resonated, what's the best way for them to reach out and find out more?
Yeah, so I actually film and post a lot of social media content. So I'm all over LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. On LinkedIn and Instagram are my main ones. So I do post like lots of short tips and tricks. But I also have my books website. It's classclowntowealthwizard.com, and you can order an autograph copy from there. And yeah, so definitely feel free to connect with me, send me a DM if you want to get in touch. And I'd love to hear your questions or just your thoughts about this podcast and more as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Look, and I sort of touched on this at the start, but you've been very generous in offering a very special a couple of gifts for Get Invested listeners. Firstly, an autographed copy of your book, Class Plan The Wealth Wizard. But I want people to take some action. So I always like to challenge people. You don't get anything in this life for nothing. But for those that can jump on an email us here at hello@knowhowproperty.com.au and summarise your biggest takeaway from our great conversation with Jia around the Class Plan The Wealth Wizard. Jia is very generously offering you a signed copy. Secondly, I know you're very excited to share your free interactive resource, which is a goal-setting template, which is absolutely perfect for anyone looking for a very structured way to define and achieve your goals, whether it's finance, career, personal development. And it provides a really clear starting point for setting meaningful objectives in all areas of your life. So again, I'll point them to it in the show notes, Jia, and they can download it for free by clicking that link or just going to your website, classclown-to-wealthwizard.com, goal-setting template. And both of these great resources are very clearly aligned with your mission to make property investing approachable and education-driven. So that I want everyone listening to do yourself and your family and your friends a favour and make sure you get your hold of them now. So that pretty much brings us to the end of a really great and very inspiring chat, Jia. So a massive thanks for waking us up and shaking us up to the need to get invested and get moving now, because you're an absolute powerhouse in that regard. And at the ripe old age of just 16, you're not only simplifying the property game, you're setting an absolute example that puts many old adults to shame in the best possible way. And your great book has delivered some timeless truths through some timeless tales that, for me, have reinforced that wealth isn't about luck or brains, it's about goals, grit and growth. That financial literacy isn't optional, it's the modern survival kit. The property isn't just bricks and mortar, it's a springboard to purpose. And most of all, that real investing starts with self-awareness, not spreadsheets. And for anyone listening, here's your wake-up call, folks. If someone juggling school, sport, business and volunteering can get financially savvy and make it work, what's stopping you? And if you think this episode will be useful for your kids, friends, other parents or colleagues, share this podcast link with them so that you can help them to transform their financial future and enjoy true fulfillment. And make sure that you remember this very simple truth. The best time to invest was yesterday. The second best time, right now. So don't let today become another I'll get to it someday moment, because someday never shows up in your calendar. If you're a parent, a mentor, a mate or a manager, don't just get invested yourself. Help your kids, your family, your friends, and your team to do the same. Because money habits are like wet cement. The earlier you shape them, the stronger they're going to get. It's just like planting a tree. You don't wait for the perfect season. You plant the seed, you water it, and before you know it, you build shade, security, and stability for generations to come. So if you're ready to stop drifting and start designing your financial future, now's the time to take the first step. And to motivate you further, just click the link in the show notes to access our Freedom Flight program. It'll help you get crystal clear on your why, what, and how investing so that you're ready to dive into the step-by-step details of how to make this all happen or happen better in my soon-to-be-released Property Wealth program. And if you want to join the wait list and be one of the first 50 to register, you'll be in the running to win one of 5 free programs that are valued over $5,000. So you need to be in it and to get involved. So just leave a comment or a post with the word wealth wherever you're listening, and or email me at hello@knowhowproperty.com.au by clicking the link in the show notes now. Or if you're facing roadblocks, analysis paralysis, or you just want a GPS dashboard to get unstuck, you can also book in with me for a personal solution session where we'll do one-on-one a session to unpack your unique situation, simplify your strategy, and help you finally move from one day to day one. Because we all need to remember that life's too short to leave your future to chance. It's time to stop letting it happen and start making it happen. So remember to get invested in your knowledge and your network before you invest in assets. Until next time, make sure you live by design, not by default. And as always, with all things, get invested. Thanks again, and let's keep the conversation going, Jia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today. It was awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to Get Invested on the Property Hub podcast channel. your home for property investment insights and inspiration. Make sure you subscribe to Property Hub for free. Get your weekly dose of Get Invested inspiration along with every episode of Realty Talk, Australia's top online property show for red-hot property investing news and insights direct from industry leaders and influencers. And finally, I'll see you next time.